Ooh, this is exotic. Muscle Cat Media. Nice. Cultural.
Back on the Baseball Expats, Tuesday, the 11th of August, getting you set for another big week of baseball after an interesting day of baseball. Look, we like to sort of think that we've always had a bit of a third eye on this show, but today we learned about a rule called the fourth out. Eric and Spoon are with me, boys. I think, and I mean, Eric, maybe I'll start with you on this because it did involve the Blue Jays, and look, for anybody that didn't see it, we'll do our best to break it down. After doing so, I do think it makes sense, but I think we were all a bit surprised to learn about the fourth out rule today, and in this beautiful sport of baseball that is the gift that keeps on giving. Hello to you, Eric.
Hello. Well, first off, if you are listening to this show, I guarantee that you have at least seen what's happening. And if you haven't, we're not going to do this justice. So I really recommend you just go on X or
just go watch
Instagram and just watch the play, because there's no way we could do it justice. But first off, like, obviously when you're watching the game and you're kind of emotional, I was like, this is bullshit. I was blowing up the chat too, but it was the right call. And like all the video kind of suggested, it's just that we've never seen this before. But my favorite bit of this all was watching the John Schneider debrief of this in the post-game conference. Did you guys watch this at all or see his comments?
No.
It was great, man, because he was like very matter-of-fact about it. He kind of had his chewing tobacco in as he normally does, and he was explaining what was going on. But he just like let off so many fun things that I like, getting the insights from the team. He had a shot at Matt Scherzer in there. He's just like, literally everybody I was around, nobody had seen this ever before be played except for Max Scherzer, because he's 42 and he's a baseball freak and he knows everything about it. So he gave a little nod to Scherzer. He walks through all of the clarifications. He had a nice line where he said, I can promise you the next time this happens in 99 years or whenever this is, the Toronto Blue Jays will throw the ball to get the lead runner. That is what will happen. And he walked through even little chats. And then even McAdoo had a really cool post-game conference where he realized when he got to the dugout that he made a boo-boo. Like, he talked, because he had a home run in the game, and he was like, I got in the dugout and my heart sank because I kind of realized this was a timing play and we didn't appeal. And I thought, this could be a little bit of trouble. And it turns out there was a little bit of trouble. But it was crazy to see other players even come out and say, I didn't know about this rule. It was crazy that the scoreboard had all this drama as well, and everybody thought it was 2 outs. Chad Tracy's comments were so funny after the game too, because they said to him, how many outs did you think there were? He's like, well, how could it be anything else but 1 out? It was no outs, and then there was a single, and then the guy was standing on first base and third base. Like, there's no way anybody should have ever thought in any world that this was 2 outs. So, like, any of the blame about, the scoreboard messing up the players, it was just chaotic. It was kind of fun. Like, it was just like, how does this happen? It's amazing that this game, it's amazing. It's so incredible that you just see something new every time you watch it. It's ridiculous.
And that, for me, is what was so funny, because Spoon was so confused and trying to figure out what was going on, and all the while was loving every minute of it. Spoon was like, this game makes no sense, and it's why we love it so much, I think.
Yeah, it was interesting watching it in I guess real time, because it went from the runner on third didn't know how many outs there were. Like, we kind of got a layer of the onion every time to like, hang on, the guy at first was running too, which you never see, right? Like, you'll see Javi Baez all the time forget how many outs there are and then get dragged afterwards. I've never seen 2 base runners both not know. Then you see the pitcher and the catcher not know, and then it was the longest, I think they said on the Boston broadcast, it was the longest break they've ever seen where there wasn't an injury involved. And I agree. It took probably 10 minutes, I reckon, of figuring out what they were even going to do first. And then after 10 minutes, they're like, we're calling New York. And I was like, why didn't you just call it at the start?
The umpire explanation was the funniest thing.
Yeah,
in the
I was going to
entire
touch
world.
on that. Yeah,
He had absolutely no idea what was
I
going on.
love that he was like, okay, cool. After we called New York, I think we've figured it all out.
We're going to get to the bottom of this.
He was everybody else. That was kind of the great part of it, is like the umpire didn't walk out and like pretend to be this like Svengali, like know-it-all. He was like, I phoned a friend, and I think now that we know everything that happened, we can make a ruling on it. Like he was
But
like everybody else in the the baseball world that was watching.
but I love that he didn't give a ruling. He was just like, "Don't worry, guys, we've
Yeah.
worked it
Well,
all
he
out."
didn't know enough to tell you what the rule
Runner,
was. He just knew enough to be able
yeah,
to recite what
Yeah,
New
like
York
they
told
didn't
him.
even explain it to him in New York. They were like, "You just need to go out there and say it's 2-1 Blue Jays.
Yeah.
We don't want to overcomplicate this.
Yeah.
You're going to get confused." He's like, "I can do that. It's 2-1 Toronto."
Yeah,
But
it's
it
like being
did-
the president's speechwriter, right? Like you just go, you read this off of a teleprompter and do not ad lib anything.
It's 2-1 Blue Jays? Question mark.
I did love though. I mean, it did seem fair, right? Like it should have been 2-1 and probably could have been worse, to be honest. So like both teams were probably lucky, right? Like the Red Sox didn't know the outs and are very, very fortunate to be awarded a run when they completely misread the situation and got lucky the Jays didn't appeal. But on the same token, the Jays are very, very lucky that everything happened the way it did and it couldn't have been more runs. But what this reminded me of is I love this chaotic nature in sport. I love when things pop up that you have no idea about and like all your best laid plans go crazy. And it's been really resonating with me lately because a lot of people that know me know I'm involved with the Australian Ice Hockey League. Literally over the weekend, there was a team, Sydney Bears, they were outside the playoff race. They had a game canceled 2 weeks ago because a pizza oven exploded and it shut down the entire rink. So a pizza oven exploded, shut down the rink. They couldn't play the game, and then the league just like made up a rule about what the cancellation was. So they awarded the teams 1.5 points, like literally a 0.5 on the thing. Never been done before. They were just like, we'll give them a 1.5 each. And now it's just thrown the whole league into chaos, and so much drama came from that. Same with this game, right? Like just this random ass rule that nobody knew about. John Schneider didn't know about it. The commentators didn't know about it. Max Scherzer did because he's a freak. That shot of him explaining to his teammates what was happening was the best. That was the best part of this all. So I don't know. I love the random nature of this all. And I think we should have this happen more often. Like we should just make up rules and apply them and not tell anybody about it and be like game changer.
I think it was like respect to, at least on the Boston broadcast, they weren't pretending to know what's going on. I think in these chaotic moments you're talking about, there's always someone who wants to be an expert even when they're not, and they just guess. And my anecdote for that, I was at the 2010 AFL Grand Final, the first one between Collingwood and St Kilda, finished as a draw, which never happened before. And they didn't announce anything in the stadium for about 10 minutes. And within that 10 minutes, people behind me were like, it's going to be a penalty shootout. They're going to torpedo it from 50 meters. Like that's never, ever happened. But someone's just made up that there's an AFL penalty shootout. There were all these other, like, we're going to power play 10 on 10. I had like 5 different theories. And then the MCG broadcaster goes, thanks everyone for coming. Tickets next week and now on sale. We're going to play this game again. And there were just like 100,000 people booing.
Boys, I have a question then. In the theme of chaos rules and rules we didn't know about in players, I'm putting you on the spot because we didn't prepare this. If you were to have the power to just create a rule, not tell anybody about it, and enforce it, whether it be retroactively in the game, whatever it was, in the game of baseball, like what would you do? What rule could you create that would cause some chaos but has some sort of sense towards it, or maybe even not?
We floated something like this many weeks ago when we were talking about the pandemic of guys getting hit by pitch. Yep. Every hit by pitch, a slot machine goes up and bounces between like 1 to 4, and it could be worth anything from like a single to a home run. So like you clip a dude on the elbow pad, and it's just like, and here it goes, and it just like, just some kind of animated pokey machine graphic drops down, and it's like 4. It's going to be 4. It's a walk-off hit by pitch grand slam.
What if you
I'd completely forgotten that we had talked about that. It was in the context of like guys getting thrown at a lot. And it was like the only way to make that not happen is to make it more than just a 1-base penalty. Because if it's, a 3-run game and the bases are empty in the 8th inning and you want to hit this guy, you'll just hit him because there's no repercussion other than the fact that you may get a 1-game suspension. So I had forgotten that we had spoken about that. But yeah, that would be funny because it's like, I think like we like the new ABS thing. I think we agreed at the beginning of the year, and my opinion on it hasn't changed, that like it does kind of add that little bit of theater, a little bit like automatic line calling in tennis where you see it and everybody goes, like it's cool. Imagine you had that after a hit by pitch, like something that is inherently boring, and it just goes, all right, this guy gets to go to first base. It's like, okay, Here comes, let's spin the wheel. It's like the mascot race that you have to watch once every 7 minutes on MLB.tv.
It's
They just have,
blooper.
they just have like 17,000 different combinations of that same mascot race, and everything goes up in a puff of smoke, and then it just appears what the outcome is.
And it would still address guys not pitching up and in so much. So I'm kind of still pushing for it in the silliest way possible.
What any rules that would pop up in your mind to cause some chaos, Rollsy?
And this is one that I was going to bring up because I did look at like some crazy rules that I didn't necessarily know existed. Did you know, as a defender, if you throw your glove at the baseball, it's worth 3 bases?
I found that out in winter ball.
It's worth 3 bases. What? Like,
Yep.
no. Like, I would rather have dudes like trying to cut a ball off in the in the right field corner, just chucking their glove at the ball, and have no repercussions for doing so. Right? Like, I think that would be cool. I kind of think it's a silly rule. I get why it exists. It's weird that it's worth 3 bases. I guess because they assume anytime somebody does it, it's trying to keep a double from being a triple, maybe potentially.
So you could still rob a home run perfectly, right? Like if it's going over your head anyway.
Oh, interesting.
You could actually save a base if you had the arm to throw your Wilson glove up.
I don't know. What would the ruling be on that? Surely it would have to be that the ball was headed into the stands and the glove being thrown. I assume you're talking about throwing the glove up like at the wall and it just dying and then falling down. It would be like, hey, you know what? We saw something that we haven't seen in forever. We haven't seen any, or it's something that no one but Max Scherzer has seen today. So who knows what the call would be? But surely that would be, you'd have to get the timing right, which would be hilarious. And like we've seen guys do that all the time in like batting practice, right? Like you see it, dudes do it at the professional level when they're out fielding during BP. They'll just like try and throw their glove up and hit a ball that's flying by them. What would be the ruling on that if you did it in a game and the rule's only 3 bases? That's a good question, Spoon.
What about a random patch of 3 innings? I don't know how you do it, where it was just like the runners you leave on base start there on the next inning. Like but you just declare it at the most random of
the
parts.
D-backs would be so good.
Oh, but no, they would still strand them.
Yeah, but at least we'd have 3 more outs to create the lobster farm.
Yeah, but like, could you imagine being like, all of a sudden it's just happening? Nobody knows when it's going to happen, but you know it's going to happen. And there's just maybe it's the roulette wheel again. Like before the game, it's just like any runner that you leave on in the 4th inning, you get to, keep in the 5th inning, which might change how managers approach that 4th inning, right? Like it's okay to leave them stranded. Does it change your account? Does it change your approach at the plate? Wouldn't mind, I don't know what you call it, a carryover inning.
This reminds me of the Rob Manfred rumors a couple of years ago where he said there were potential plans for a golden AB. The golden at-bat is a preliminary conceptual idea discussed by MLB's competition committee. It would allow each team once per game to send any hitter to the plate out of turn in the batting order. That would just be the most broken thing ever, right?
I'm pretty sure they did that in Baseball United last year in Abu Dhabi or Dubai or wherever they play that crazy.
Did it work?
They had something similar. And I think like the only time you ever use it is at the end of a game, right?
Aaron Judge just struck out, so here's Aaron Judge.
Well, yeah, I mean that's kind of when you would use it. It would screw with the batting order too much, though. I feel like, right? Like it would just, I don't know how it would work.
Well, I think that person just gets pinch hit for, but without getting removed from the game, effectively.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, it's just like a Aaron Judge 2.0 is entering, and then the guy who he replaced re-enters, I guess.
Yeah, and it can't be someone on the bases.
I know kind of on that theme, someone in kind of the local traps around here, it wasn't anything serious, but kind of suggested that wouldn't it be kind of fun if you had home run multipliers if they were hit in sequence? So like if you hit a home run, it's obviously worth 1, but if you go back to back, then that home run is worth 2. And then if you go back to back to back, the next home run is worth 4. It's kind of like your Uno cards where you're going pick up 2, pick up 4. Like if you are bad enough to allow 3 straight home runs or good enough to do it, you just get punished for it, which means you could be down 7 and you could theoretically go back to back to back home runs and tie the game.
Or if you start the game like that, you've got a position player pitching in the 2nd inning.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, that's very true.
Like that the fans are just like walking out.
That would be like, it's like lining up ×2 on a Genghis Khan machine on a Friday night at the Red Lion Hotel. Never happened, by the way.
Never.
Just a couple other ones that I wanted to, things that I had looked up. Like, everybody obviously knows the batting out of order rule is that if you bat out of order, the guy's out. But did you know that it only is an out if the opposing team appeals it? The
Yeah, I
umpire
did
can't
know.
make the call on a guy batting out of order. And if you take that even further, so let's say a leadoff guy gets a base hit. Before the next guy hits, the opposing team can still appeal that. And if they appeal
Really?
correctly, the guy who got the base hit, who hit out of order, is not the one that's out. It's the guy that didn't hit who is out. So let's say the leadoff man is due
Yeah.
up, but the number 2 guy hits. If that number 2 guy gets a base hit and is on first base and then it's appealed, the guy who never took an at bat is technically the one who is out. And then the guy who's at first base goes and takes another at bat in his rightful spot in the second spot.
That's an interesting quirk.
It's insane.
I
Baseball's
like
insane.
I like the rules around like uniforms and stuff like that. Like you're not allowed to catch a ball with your hat. I know that's a rule. I know that
Or your catcher's equipment, as Yadier Molina found out about 8 years ago when he had that much stickum on it that the baseball just stuck to his chest protector.
but if a
It's
ball
automatically a base, I think, right? If you do it, it's an automatic single base for
It is.
the hitter and whoever else is on base.
but it's not an automatic base if the ball gets stuck in your uniform. So let's just say you're in your I don't know. Jesus Sanchez is the most. This could only happen to Jesus Sanchez. Like he misreads. Well, just a normal day for Jesus Sanchez. He just reads a normal, routine line drive to left field. It takes a hop and it ends up in like the stitching of his jersey, but just a dead ball. Everyone stops where they are, and the umpires can say, just go back."
Yeah,
So
I think it's
there is a
umpire's
little-
discretion, right?
There's a little inefficiency there where if you timed it perfectly and maybe left a button undone, it could be like a ground rule double that saves a runner from scoring, potentially.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Literally.
didn't we see it? We saw it happen with like Logan Gilbert early this year, didn't we? Or was it the end of last year where he didn't know where it was? Like it was a comebacker straight to him, and it got caught in his jersey, and he couldn't figure out where it was.
Yeah.
And they thought it was going to be an out because it was a line drive, like it didn't bounce, so it just went straight into his jersey, and the umpires ruled that it was a single. Because they
Insane.
ruled had it not got caught in his jersey, it would have gone past him. And the way the defense was playing, they wouldn't have gotten to the baseball, and it would have ended up being a single. So it's to the umpire's discretion, which makes it even crazier. Whereas when it's specifically a catcher, it's automatically a base. Who made the rules in baseball? Abner Doubleday? Did he make all of these rules? Do we have Abner to blame for all of these
I
things?
feel like they were just discovered, not made. Like there was like an ancient like script that
Yeah.
was like found, and no one can question it because it came from a higher power. So they've tweaked with it a little bit, but like the ancient scroll kind of turns red and angry. Like when the Manfred Man came in, they were probably really pushing their luck a little bit, and they're like one rule change away from these evil spirits coming back.
The other one that I found interesting, I didn't know this, Rule 509B4C. That's the actual name of the rule.
Oh, that's one of my favorite rules.
If a base is dislodged in the middle of a play, the original footprint of the base is still live.
What?
So let's say a runner slides into second base, ball gets thrown away. Second base comes dislodged. Guy's running from first to second. The base could be 6 feet from where it initially was, but he still has to touch the footprint of where the initial base was to be ruled to have touched second base.
Just imaginary.
Yeah.
I love this.
That's probably better than
Great.
him having to go into center field to get it right.
I kind of like that he has to go like chase the base. Like that's kind of cool, right? Like there's just a base.
Yeah,
or
like,
just somewhere
here's
hanging out.
Dalton Varsho rounding second, and he's kicked the base into center field. That's going to make it interesting.
I know if you link this back to the Jays game today, there is another rule I wanted to bring up, which someone was pulling at straws for, but it actually probably has somewhat of a leg to stand on. I'm not saying I agree with it, but the rule is, to quote Rolsey, you guys are very familiar with official MLB rule 6.01A5, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this rule is a retired runner who actively hinders or impedes or confuses a subsequent play on a live runner can cause another active teammate to be called, where did the rule go? Can be called out for interference. So this was another point of argument from this fourth out play, but there was like a precedence that had to happen in the sequence. That's why it wasn't. But you could make the case that because the runner at third that didn't tag was the lead runner, was doing something actively to confuse the Blue Jays defense by running off the field, running into the dugout, thus drawing tension away from him at third base. And just, if you're an outfielder for the Jays, you're looking in there, there's just one guy on the field. He came from first. So it makes sense why you would throw it to first base, right? Like, that's what you see. You just make that play. So some people were arguing, well, okay, but then wouldn't this trigger this rule because the lead runner was deliberately in confusing everybody else? But there was nothing deliberate about that. No, don't make a mess. But that was another interesting rule that got brought up that I had never heard of before either.
Do you guys think both managers, are we giving the managers credit that they knew this rule today?
No.
I mean, I saw the Red Sox manager, I thought him say fourth out, but he could have easily been mirroring what was said to him, right? And he was kind of saying it in a confusing way. And maybe we're giving him too much credit because only a few months ago in the WBC, Mark DeRosa didn't know the USA qualification
didn't
rules,
know
right?
They had to win,
Yeah, so maybe we're giving him too much credit here. Like, all they know what to do is pinch hit a lefty against a righty.
Look, I think you could do it deliberately as deception. I don't think you're doing it in it. Was it 2-0 at the time? Was it 2-0 Jays at the time that it happened? I don't think you're doing it deliberately with runners at the corners and one out. I don't necessarily think that's when you're going to do it deliberately, but this is what I was kind of thinking once it happened and all of it had been ruled on, and I was kind of thinking about it. I'm like, what is a way where you could manipulate this rule in your favor? And I mean, it's kind of exactly what the Red Sox did. I don't think any of us are going to give enough credit to the Red Sox to say that they did this on purpose, because they still ran themselves out of an inning and didn't tie the game. But, in a 2-1 game in the 8th inning, if you do something like that, and to Eric's point, if you practice it and cause a distraction and everybody's confused and everybody goes off the field, there's no time to actually enact the fourth out by throwing the ball to third base. Then maybe in theory you could do it deliberately, but I think it was just one of those instances where everybody was confused and we learned a new rule.
The time to do it was before today, because you best believe every single player in the bigs learned that rule today, right? You're going to have to wait 50 years to try to pull that out.
Well, and this is also where review kind of changes a lot of the quirky things that people do. I mean, there used to be a play way back in the day before review and before four-man umpiring crews, like back in the 60s, where a runner would take off from second base and just completely cut the third base bag. Completely cut it. They would lay down a bunt. The guy would, he'd cut into the grass and run home because all of the attention was on the ball. And the opposing manager would come out and they'd fight and scream, but nobody saw it. And there was no way to go back and actually review it. I mean, there's teams that have done that at the big league level where they just intentionally cut 20 feet off the distance between second and home, cut the third base bag, lay down a bunt, score a run. And because none of the umpires saw it, it goes on to be a run. So, and look, the Cardinals used to do it when Mike Matheny was the manager. They would run through the bag at second on a double play to confuse the middle infielders. And I think we've seen a bit more of that probably in the last 10 years, where, a middle infielder is such a creature of habit that if they get the ball and the guy coming at you just kind of turns the bag and runs to third, all of a sudden you think, oh, what have I done wrong here? I've missed something. But they just confuse it so that the guy gets on first base and say there's a runner at third, he can come home to score. So, we've seen misdirection and stuff like this before in baseball, but I guess with review, you're probably going to see less of it, and it's more of a risk because you have to execute it perfectly. You have to make sure the other team doesn't know the rule, and you have to make sure that it's not reviewable.
Yeah, and I mean, where do you draw the line between something like that, which is against the rules, and something like the deke, where the second baseman holds the glove on the runner when it's already gone into center field, and he's just trying to make sure he doesn't pick up the extra base on the error.
Yeah, and look, I mean, this is what we were talking about today. I think it's why we love the game, because literally, I mean, I think I say this every time I get on a broadcast. You never, ever know what you're going to see when you show up at the ballpark. Like most sports, you turn up, you're going to see some amazing things. You're going to see some great athleticism and some exciting moments, but you can genuinely say with baseball, you can turn on a game or show up at the ballpark and have no idea what you're going to see that day. And today is one of those days. Monday, the 10th of August in the United States. The fourth out rule was introduced to all of us. Speaking of fourth out, Spoon's in last in Destiny Draft because all of his players are hurt again. You have this innate ability of sending everyone that you draft to the injured list, Spoon, and it seems as though that streak has continued here in round 6.
Yeah, I mean, some of them have just been bizarre. It started, what did it start? A couple of weeks ago, it started with Julio Rodriguez got hit by a throw when he was running the bases. He got concussed, 10-day IL. See you later, Destiny Draft. Still managed to somehow cling on to second that week with 41 points. Thanks very much to Nolan McLean. Then last week, Juan Soto, in the midst of the Mets collapsing, he took 2 games maybe, struck out 3 times, checked out with a nice -2. Thanks for playing. And then this week today, my best performer on the round was Jameson Taillon, which is a horrific sentence to say. And he goes out with elbow soreness after just 4 innings. And I think he's had TJ twice already. If it's TJ again, that's got to be it for him. And J-Ram missed the first half of the round with wrist inflammation. I think I sent you guys one of the screenshots where it was like, we don't know how bad it is, and we don't know if he's going to the IL. None of that stops the fact that Murakami struck out 12 times in 8 days, though. And even if these other 2 guys were alive, I'd probably still be coming last.
Well, it's funny because you were kind of tossing up Murakami and Schwarber. And for the first sort of 3 or 4 days, Schwarber was not great. I mean, he struck out 10 times in the first week plus, but has had a couple of really good games. He was 2 for 3 today, drove in a run, scored a run, but he had a couple home runs over the weekend. But I mean, it's just so risk reward. I mean, we could also be sitting here talking about Murakami next week, and he's sitting on 10 or 12 points. So it was kind of that risk reward you knew you were getting, and obviously not thinking that, J-Ram or Taillon were going to go to the IL. So it does hurt you that little bit more. And look, we will hear from Sophia here in just a second. She's in front of you after a week in round number 6. Has she been walking around the house with a little bit of a head wobble?
Honestly, the game against the D-backs had a series against the Dodgers over the weekend. Andy Pages hit a game-tying home run or something like that, and she had the nerve to let out a "let's go." So we haven't spoken since. I'll try and reach her and see if she can send a voice memo, but we're no longer speaking.
Well, let's look. Well, I'm going to say that the glass is half full, and that you're going to get that voice recording from Sophia. So let's hear from Sophia herself as to how she feels after this first week.
Hey guys, Sophia here. So the listener team is actually going pretty well. Grayson Rodriguez has lived up to my belief in him, and the number 21 is paying off after all. Andy Pages is doing well, even though Spoon hates the Dodgers. And Nick Fortes was just a mistake, so let's not talk about him. So it looks like Rosie is going to win, but if I get some luck, I can maybe make it interesting.
Well, good to hear from Sophia. Glad she's in high spirits. And look, to be fair, Grayson Rodriguez, who, again, I'd have to go back and listen to this. Her exact quote was, he hasn't been that great, but I believe in him. And it seems as though that's all that he's really needed. Like, I mean, he's had his best couple of outings of the season since being drafted by Sophia. And I mean, like, he's been, the second best pitcher in the pool so far at 14 points.
Yeah, I mean, if all her players could wear jersey number 21, she'd probably be clearly on top, right?
Or if she had just said that she believes in all of them in the same way that she did about Grayson Rodriguez.
Yeah, I don't think believing in Nick Fortes would change anything.
No, I don't think so either.
Mr. and
Andy Pages
Mrs. Fortes
has
don't
5
believe
points, Fortes -1, and Grayson Rodriguez at 14. So Sophia is sitting in third. Eric was sitting pretty before Cam Schlittler had a great second start. And to be fair, Eric, like, your team has been just steadily moving along. Like, if you look at your the way that you've been tracking, just sort of on the round tracker, it's been moving along steadily. I mean, Chase Madroth and Jackson Churio have both been playing really, really well. I think you were really banking on Chase Burns giving you something better than what he did a couple days ago. 5 1/3, struck out 6, gave up 5 runs. It was a pretty similar outing, to be fair, as to what Cam Schlittler did in start 1 for me. I guess the only issue with Burns is that you're only going to get that one more start from him.
He got 25 points from him last round. Let's not feel too sorry about Chase Burns.
And he could give me a big one again. I'm going to need a big Chase Burns start. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that one.
So Eric's sitting on 23, and I, again, am leading. And again, it is the 1-1 that's doing it for me. I mean, that's exactly what did it for me last round with Mizorowski. I think scoring over 30 points on his own and essentially lifting me to the win last round. And it's Cam Schlittler doing it again. He didn't have a great start in his first start of the round, but he came back with a 14-point performance, 17 Ks in those 2 starts, 10 innings, and the 5 earned runs. Can I be run down from here?
I don't think you can. I think you're immoral. was just going to say quickly,
Uh,
if these scores hold, Rolsey goes to 14 on the season, Eric goes to 15 on the season, the listener goes to 15 on the season, and I go to 16 on the season. There'll be 2 points from first to last.
That's what
After
we
2
want.
rounds ago, it was, me and then Daylight and then the rest of you. I can be run down, evidently.
Well, I mean, it seems like your system, not only from a scoring standpoint, but from a 4-3-2-1 and a points tiebreaker, it's all coming together. I mean, this is a game that you created, Spoon, and we've talked about tweaking rules and changing rules, but in 18 months, we haven't had to do so because we always seem to end up here, right? It always seems as, I mean, from memory last year, I was running last for a majority of the season, and I think ended up winning it, right?
Yeah, and the draft rule is probably the fairest rule of them all, right? Like, it makes sense. The AFL should stop and listen because the worst team should be able to get the best players. None of this father-son rubbish. You've had the opportunity to go out and get Mizorowski last week, who effectively got you 4 points. Schlittler this week. And what's crazy about it, what I just said, if the scores hold and it's 14, 15, 15, 16 amongst the 4 of us, you get to pick 1-1 again. But this time there's a lot more at stake, and the inverse is true for me. I pick last again, but I've been lucky to get the charity point that you get for turning up 2 weeks in a row. So I'm going to be picking last, and if it's another weak pool like this week, I think come round 8 when we do this in 2.5, 3 weeks, I'm going to be maybe even out of the placings.
And that might be the tweak that we make next year. Obviously, we can't do it this year, but maybe it's a 4-3-2 and then last is a 0-pointer, because then it does, like, if you finish last, it becomes a genuine disadvantage as opposed to it just being tiered all the way through. Maybe there does need to be
3-2-0, 3-2-1-0.
Well, but I mean, that's effectively the same thing. I think if you're 2 points behind for finishing last, it is worse. Or you get a bonus point for winning, maybe is the other way of doing it, is when you actually get a victory, you're rewarded for it.
That's what I was going to say.
Just having that separation of 2 points, either at the top or at the bottom, I think could potentially make it. Because, again, like if you finish last 3 times, like I have, maybe you shouldn't have any chance of actually winning the competition, you know what I mean? Because you would have gotten run away from by that point. Or
we want our listeners to have a chance.
Or is it, do you do the draft order based on how things went the previous week, right? So instead of just the last place person going first, and then, if you get in a hole like yourself, all of a sudden you're just like, here's the first pick, here's the first pick.
Yeah, that's probably a better fit, because Rolsey getting 1-1 after dropping 70 last week is a little bit like, the rich get richer kind of thing. And the inverse has been true for me. And when a poor pool comes like it did, my lead is just dwindling every time I open this website.
Well, let's give Jake Mangum and Nathan Lucas some credit, right? Like I have managed to pick guys at 7 and 8 or 8 and 9 that have played pretty well. Yeah, I mean,
if I picked them, they'd be dead.
yeah. So I mean, I at least don't have the curse that Spoon does. But again, look, you can head to baseballexpats.com and click on Destiny Draft. We will do a Destiny Draft episode next week. It'll be round 7. I think we've only got 2 or 3 more rounds remaining, and maybe only 1 spot left to the end of the year. So if you do want to get involved in Destiny Draft, either hit us up on baseballexpats.com or do so via Instagram. Just quickly, is round 6 the worst pool that we've had collectively, talent-wise, do you think?
It's disgusting.
Yeah, okay.
It felt disgusting in real time, and the stats have backed it up, much like last round, the saying, this is cracked, came out 5 or 10 times. As we were pulling it was just like all-star after all-star. I mean, one of the first cards we picked was Schlittler, I think, and then there just weren't many names. There's so many guys. You scroll down to the undrafted player. There's 8 guys here on the IL, and even if they weren't, I think the only one you might genuinely take would be Cody Bellinger or maybe Brandon Woodruff. And then you've got all these guys kind of like rotting in the minors, or Cade Povich dominating, then rotting in the minors. It's really ugly. We'd struggle to genuinely have like a 5th team in this with this pool.
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly pitching-wise, I don't think we would have been able to have realistically a 5th team. And I mean, when you look at the undrafted players from the last round, I mean, there were 4 guys that were in double figures. One of them was a closer, and one of them was Brian Bayo. So I think of the drafted class last week, it was good stock. But even the undrafted were still pretty average. But yeah, I think the problem is this week, the drafted have been somewhat average.
The ceiling and the floor are both terrible, right?
Yeah. But again, head to baseballexpats.com. That'll run through Sunday in the U.S., Monday our time next week, and we'll drop a new episode for round 7 of Destiny Draft next Monday. Before we get to Spoon's best bets for the week, and Spoon had a really good day today. You can follow him at the MLB Bet Tracker at baseballexpats.com. There was something that came across yesterday in some international baseball news that I wanted to touch on. We don't know much about it because, as is the nature of these, world baseball announcements. I mean, the World Baseball Softball Confederation, I'm not sure how much they can say, but essentially have partnered with a data and betting organization. In what ways, we don't really know. The release that they gave yesterday said that there will be some fundamental changes to their 3 senior-ish tournaments this year. Obviously, the U15 World Cup won't be a part of this, but the second women's baseball qualifier, there's also a U23 World Cup and a Premier 12 qualifier that Eric and I will be calling in November. But it's interesting to see the World Baseball Softball Confederation leaning into the wagering side of things. And again, we don't have much information. It's a sign, I think, of where a lot of international organizations are going to, and a lot of it is probably for protection as much as anything else. But for baseball, I think this will be a really interesting move to see what happens with this. Because honestly, for me, Eric, it felt like it sort of came out of left field, pardon the pun.
Yeah, I think you are completely right about it. It is more protection because who knows? I mean, you got to remember, like leagues like the CPBL in Taiwan, for example, even, look at the MLB and Otani and the whole documentary that's out now, but Pete Rose, whatever it is, but betting is going to happen whether it's regulated or not. So I think there probably is a protection in there. It does say a lot about data, so I am keen to see what that might mean. I was glad to see that they didn't extend this to things like the under 15 World Cup or even the under 18. Like, I think in no world should there be encouraged gambling on junior sport. I think that's probably where the line is, right? Like, if kids aren't old enough to bet on it, they shouldn't be being bet on. But yeah, interesting the words they used, right? Like, they said it was about to make it more accessible, which is true. It'll get people on there. I need to look into Feed Construct. I don't really know. Do you know much about them?
No, that was it was my first time learning of Feed Construct, but it was the words from their CEO that were interesting. I mean, right, like it was sort of some of the corporate jargon that you get, by securing worldwide data and streaming distribution, premier baseball tournaments, all that sort of stuff. But there was a line he said, "We're equipping our network of hundreds of sportsbook partners with highly engaging premium sports content, and baseball's high-frequency stat-driven nature makes it an exceptional asset for in-play engagement."
What does
I
that
don't
mean?
know what that means, but it certainly seems like there is a real wagering play with this. It's not as though they're just partnering to be able to have somebody to secure the data, to secure vision, potentially for betting, which is low latency feeds that go directly to different platforms so that they can bet in game, whatever that is. But I think maybe what they are seeing is the popularity of baseball betting. And I mean, we've got a guy right here on our show that is so data driven that, yes, it's largely with Major League Baseball, but if he had the amount of data that he gets from Major League Baseball for tournaments or for other leagues in the world, whatever that means, you may be keen to exploit some of those things. I mean, no one gets more excited than Spoon when he sees a line at 4.5 strikeouts and he knows the guy should get 7, right? It's only because he knows the guy's name why he's interested in Major League Baseball. But Spoon, I feel like, I mean, you're probably a good test case for this, right? Because if, regardless of what the guy's name is, and bullpen guys aside, because we know that you think they shouldn't have names anyways, but aside from who the guys are, if the data is saying one thing and you're seeing a line that is way too low, I think baseball people in particular, as bettors, are probably the one group of people that, regardless of what the competition is, would jump in and say, that's too low, I'm going to get part of that action.
Yeah, and you mean the way that bookies work is that they make money regardless of which side you bet on, right? So they want to encourage turnover as much as possible. And what we've seen more and more here in Australia with Sportsbet, especially around the Australian sports like AFL and NRL. A lot of other bookmakers have done the same thing. I mean, you can find out now like how many tries Josh Adokar scores when it's like 26 degrees and slightly cloudy, right? Because there's no disadvantage from their end in encouraging the turnover. But you're right, the more information there is for the punter, the more likely they are to watch. And I mean, you can have your own thoughts about whether getting people involved in gambling is, you know, one way or the other morally, but it's eyeballs on the sport regardless. And what that does for advertisements, contracts, all those kinds of things. The Canary jumped on our show as a listener early on. He got into baseball by betting against Simeon Wood Richardson strikeouts. Now he messages me every day saying go Snakes when the D-backs win. So like there's clear pathways there from, okay, this is something to watch, and you know, I've got a free afternoon, so I'm going to chuck $20 on, into I'm now a fan of this athlete, this team, this entire league potentially. And for some of these emerging leagues, I think that's a great way to both generate revenue because they get their share of the gambling side, but also generate fans that may have not, you know, stumbled upon them otherwise.
At what point does it get out of control?
10 years ago.
Yeah, like is
Yeah,
it?
I think we're past that.
Are we naive enough to think that there isn't a degree of match fixing happening at some level of baseball around the world at this exact second?
Oh, I think they can't put this genie back in the bottle. That's the problem. So now everyone's scrambling to get their slice, right? Like the Mets announced a couple of weeks ago, they've got a prediction market, which is just a fancy way of saying gambling. I mean, whoever did the PR behind prediction market is a genius because it sounds so much better than betting or gambling, words with these connotations. Everyone's just trying to get their slice of the pie. And look, it took the US in particular so long. They were the last country to really get on board with online betting. They were trying to protect, you know, Vegas as an industry, but also the Native American casinos. People had to fly in to place their bets. Ultimately, the likes of, you know, DraftKings and FanDuel kind of paved the way. Now that these revenue streams are opening up still, there's no putting this genie back in the bottle.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see, particularly in Australia, the last week in the news. You know, there's been a few inquiries about how gambling companies have acted. Now, I have not read into it enough to be an expert on this at all, or even really to have an opinion. But if you're not following Australian news, like it all came around Luke Bateman, right? The former NRL player, former Bachelor, by the way, on TV as well, where he was basically talking pretty openly about his gambling addiction and the problem it came there. So I need to do some more research in it about what the Senate is, what the numbers is, the substance that Luke Bateman said. Do you know anything more about it?
Yeah, I think, and there's a massive issue. My one issue with the way it's regulated is there are a lot of things that the bookies are allowed to do to winning punters that they won't do to losing punters, and they do the opposite. So,
correct.
like, I've had accounts in the past where I can't bet more than $50 on anything to do with baseball.
Is it because you're winning?
Yeah, X amount in a row. If I'd lost every single bet, I'd have an account manager. I'd be, you know, invited to ABL games or watch parties for the World Series or whatever. And they drive harder and harder and just target those losing punters.
Well, that's a problem.
Deposit matches, all that kind of stuff. So for me, I mean, I have no issue with it whatsoever as a principle, because I think we're all grown adults. We can make our own decisions, but the upside should match the downside, right? So don't dangle all these carrots in front of my face if I'm losing, but then when I'm winning, it's, you know, we won't take your action anymore.
I think the incentives is probably the problem either way. I do know people that have bet on the Australian Baseball League, by the way. Like this was like 10 years ago that got banned from the betting apps because they were making too much money off of it. Like they banned them from that. So that's your point. Yeah. But then if you want to go the other way on it too, yeah, for me, is that direct advertising where it starts to get a little bit greasy, right? Like the calling, that's what stood out to me in that chat, was he was losing a lot of money and he was having account managers, like you're saying, call him and say, we want to make you
act
a
like
VIP.
Your friend, like, you know, g'day mate, hope you're having a good weekend. How about you know, put this week's paycheck through and hopefully don't lose
when
your
they
wife
clearly know that he hasn't had a good weekend, right? Like, and that's the thing, is that they've got access to all of his data and all his information.
You wouldn't do that. Like if you had a massive drinking problem and you were drinking a bunch of beers and then you were kind of, and I knew that and I saw you with a bunch of like, and I clearly saw you having that problem, I'd be pretty offended if Han came to you and said, hey, Rolsey, we're going to give you 24 beers every day to your doorstep every day. You don't need to do anything. Like, you know, that's a problem because you're that targeted one. And I certainly wouldn't be trying to buy you beers if you knew, like, you know what I mean? Like it's,
Yeah. The reality is, though, if they were legally allowed to do that, you
Yeah.
bet they would. So that's where, legislation has to change as far as this level of inciting gambling, I guess, from problem people. The reality is, as well, from what I've seen, I wouldn't have the exact data, but it's normally like 5% of their customer base or client base, if you will, makes like 95% of the revenue, right? Because you've got these whales or whatever you want to call it, and they're the ones that have the account manager. And think about an account manager, like I don't know what that would be in Australia, $80,000 a year salary, whatever it is. That person's job effectively is getting paid by trying to take more than $80,000 worth of revenue from a customer. So there's definitely like insipid factors there. And yeah, like I said, the fact you're allowed to do that, but they can cap your winnings at any time and find any way possible to not pay you out, any technicality, that's what needs to change. If it's a fair 50-50, I think then we can kind of make our own decisions.
It'll be cool or curious to see if they end up following like platforms like the tobacco industry, right? Like all this, remember tobacco was all over sports, all over race cars. Remember the Marlboros on the was it on Ferrari and the F1 with Schumacher and all of that. I do wonder if around the world that will end up happening where they say you cannot advertise, like that becomes government legislation. I'm not making a comment whether I agree or disagree with it. I'm just pointing out that's happened before. Could it happen again?
Yeah. And I mean, even during, I'm kind of immune to it really at this point, but you sit down and watch a game now and you'll see 4 different bookmakers advertising at halftime in any sporting game. You watch a rugby league game, every single person has every single team has a wagering partner on the back of their Guernsey. I think the massive issue, and I've kind of seen it with some of the clubs I'm involved in, is they identify that either they see the moral side of it and they want to address that for moral reasons, or they see the PR harmful side of it and they want to address it for that reason. The question that's become impossible to answer is, where do you replace that revenue from? Mm-hmm. And right now, there is no way at all to do it. The leagues get a massive share for being licensed partners. The clubs get their share of that. It's like talking about taking pokies out of rugby league clubs in New South Wales or Queensland. It's all well and good to say, yeah, we shouldn't do this anymore, but there's genuine clubs that would die without it. And is that the trade-off that we want? Because my view is people who want to gamble will gamble, and they'll find a way to gamble offshore a lot of the time, or they'll find other ways to find that outlet. If the sport that they're supporting indirectly kind of dies as a result of that, I'm not sure that's a net positive.
Tough conversation to have, though, when you're saying, hey, each major league, I don't know what the number is, but let's say Major League Baseball teams have $50 million each that they are given because of these gambling deals, but they are also spending $60 million on Kyle Tucker.
Yeah.
Well, that was a bit of a gamble.
And Kyle Tucker's now.
Talk about gambling.
That was a bit of a gamble. That screenshot that you sent us yesterday that we haven't spoken about was hilarious. I sent it to a buddy of mine who's a Yankees fan. That you'll have to remind me who the players were, but it was like Manny Machado,
Trey Turner,
Kyle Tucker, Trey Turner, and somebody else all had the same amount of WAR in 100+ games as George Lombard Jr. has in 4.
I thought that was good. I said
amazing.
That without context too. You hadn't heard from me all weekend.
You didn't need any context. It had Kyle Tucker's name on it. Like that is the context.
But I was kind of quiet on the weekend, and I thought it was kind of funny that I was like, I'll just drop this in the chat with the boys. Yeah, I've got it up now. Kyle Tucker, 0.6 WAR. Trey Turner, 0.6 WAR, 115 games. Manny Machado, 0.5 WAR, 115 games. Bo Bichette, 0.3 WAR. 117 games. George Lombard Jr., 0.6 WAR, 4 games.
There's like $250 million in AAV there as well, right? That's just as insane.
And it's also it's easy to shit on these other guys for having bad seasons, but 0.6 WAR in 4 games is kind of insane. Really. I think a lot of that has to be defensive WAR, because I think he already has 3 or 4 defensive runs saved at shortstop through 4 games. So it's probably a lot of D-WAR as much as it is offensive WAR.
Yeah, well, I think Joe Adele had one complete WAR for that game where he robbed 3 home runs, including the walk-off, right? So I guess if you had a few fractions of that Joe Adele game, it's possible. And it does kind of show why WAR in a small sample size can be a little bit take it or leave it sometimes.
Well, anyways, it will be interesting to just sort of keep tabs on what happens with that WBSC announcement. And again, as an international body, you can't ignore that all this stuff is happening, right? So you have to get out in front of it. and you've got to find these organizations that are still at an arm's length or are in negotiation with these individual betting companies, but are basically the provider of your data to those betting companies so that you're not dealing with them regularly. I mean, Major League Baseball has that, I believe, with Sports Radar. Potentially, I know they were with Sports Radar at one point. Maybe they still are, maybe they aren't. But I mean, they have these technology partners as well, and that's just the direction that the WBSC is going in. Spoon, just quickly, before we get to your tips, how long did it take you to escape from my courtyard on Friday night?
Like physically, I think an hour, but mentally, I'm still there.
Right. Okay.
Roaming around.
I nearly sent you a photo of it this morning. It was nice. It was leafy. It looks different in the daytime than what it does at nighttime. It just reminded me that because I think we were 500 messages deep talking about you being stuck in the courtyard when Eric just sent that screenshot about Kyle Tucker being awful with no context. That's what reminded me of it.
there's probably
Spoon was
one
in the
more
throngs of battling for his life, and I guess was just like, this is me now. I live in the jungle.
Yeah, I mean, if we're bringing up trauma, there's probably one more thing from Friday that you should tell Eric about. Eric Rosie asked his lovely wife to name a couple of St. Louis Cardinals players, or name her Mount Rushmore, like her best 4 St. Louis Cardinals players. She came up with 2. Can you guess which 2 players she knows?
Have a go.
I mean, maybe Mark McGuire.
No. I mean, no. Like they've got to be like she wouldn't know any Cardinal past 20. Like we met in 2013, so she wouldn't know any Cardinal before that. No chance.
Okay.
There's still some good ones.
Albert?
Nope. You're close though. He's Albert adjacent. One of them is Albert adjacent and makes sense.
Molina?
Yes.
Okay.
Which fine, good, nice job, Claire.
Worthy name.
Yeah.
Who do you think the second one is?
Like someone current? JJ Weatherholt?
Could be. Yeah, I mean, he's current for somebody, not for St.
Rosie
Louis
would be
anymore.
happy if it was someone current and someone who was current. It would show that she's tuning into games right now.
I would have been happy if it was Dustin May or Ryan Stanek over
Mason
who
Wynn?
she told me it was. No. It was Harrison Bader. Why do you think it was Harrison Bader?
I have no idea why.
Well, it's because he's a good-looking rooster. I mean, obviously, there's no other reason. It's clear that at some point she was watching a game with me in 2019 on a Sunday morning and just heard his name and saw him on TV and Googled
7 years ago.
That's clearly the only way she knows who Harrison Bader is. So the only 2 baseball players that play for the St. Louis Cardinals that my wife knows are Yadier Molina and Harrison Bader.
That is random. I mean, Molina makes sense, but Bader.
I was like, Adam Wainwright. And she's like, who?
Bader hasn't played there, in 6 years?
This is my point. So not only did she look him up in live time, but she remembers his name.
Yeah, he hasn't. When was it?
She thinks about Harrison Bader more than the 3 of us who are massive baseball fans think about Harrison Bader combined.
Yeah, I think that's 100% safe to assume.
He was pretty good one year.
Babe, if you're listening, there's some more names that we just said for you that you can try and memorize for the next time at Spoon and I quiz you
Stanek
at the Red Lion Hotel. Let's get into Spoon's picks. If you didn't follow him today, well, you should have been, because our man made some money, up about 3.8 units with his main bets, up 2 units on some of the top-ups. And Spoon, even though it was a good day, there were still some could-have-beens. You were, I think 3 strikeouts, 1 strikeout among 3 different guys away from it being an excellent day. We're going to get the negative out of the way before you give us the tips, because it's going to be only positive.
I'm with you. Kind of, when it's good, not great, but the great was right there, it kind of hurts. I mean, you're never going to get them all, but yeah, Casey Myers gets another strikeout today. Then we have him and Logan Henderson both picking up 7. That was paying $12.50, so that's another 6 units there with a half unit stake. Reed Detmers, he got 6. Mackenzie Gore got 9. Needed both guys to get 7. That was worth 4.5 unit swing. And then Michael Soroka, D-backs return, got 4. We needed 5 for another 4.5 unit swing. So, yeah, look, we made about 6 units today. It had the potential of being a monster, and it just kind of tailed off late. But seeing it well and really excited for tomorrow's slate. There's some awesome matchups.
Well, again, you can head to baseballexpats.com. It's on the homepage now, but if you miss it, just click on the drop-down at MLB Picks, and you can see Spoon's picks, not only from today, but tomorrow's will be up tomorrow morning as well. So let's get into it. Where are we going for your best tomorrow?
I am so excited for this one. We are heading to Miami. We have Paul Skeens against Ayuri Perez. Like,
Ooh.
let's go. The two best
Ooh.
young pitchers in baseball, maybe two of the best top three anyway. And again, I'll take the opportunity to remind everyone that Ayuri Perez is younger than Paul Skeens. People always forget that. Ayuri Perez was phenomenal last time. He struck out 9 Braves in a start where they keep putting his lineup at 5.5. They've learned their lesson this time against the Pirates, which is understandable. But look, Perez, he's just having the season of my dreams for a lot of reasons. I'm really excited to see him against a Pirates team that swing and miss so much. Skeens is having an interesting year. I mean, it's his 3rd year in the league. It's his worst year in the league, which, read into that what you will. Velocity's down a little bit, but he is a 6 or more strikeout guy every single time. Pretty much bar his opening day start, I think. You can almost set your watch to him going out and getting 6, but with upside there. Look, I'm so keen to watch both sides of tomorrow's pitching matchup. Both guys to get just 6 strikeouts is paying $2, even money, double your money. Between the two of them in their last 5 starts, they've done it 9 out of 10 times. I think that's a really, really good play for best of the day. And we'll be topping up a little bit on 8 each at $7, which I think is a nice bit of value for the top up as well. Because look, Perez has 9 twice in his last 4 starts. Skeen has 8 3 times in his last 4 starts. So I think if both guys bring it, which we know they're capable of, we could be watching a nice little pitching duel unfold.
Yeah, I mean, any excuse to watch either of these two guys, let alone when they're playing each other. Just quickly on Perez, he's 29 strikeouts shy of 150, which is the first number you staked him out in the futures at just over even money. I assume he probably should get, at this rate, 6 more starts, so that 29 strikeouts seems doable. But at this point, that first top-up of him getting to 170, a number that looked like it was gone in the middle of the season, looks like, I mean, if he keeps pace and he keeps doing things like getting 6, 7, 8 per start, I mean, if he gets 6, maybe 7 starts, that 170 all of a sudden is within reach for him.
Yeah, I'm kind of working on 6 or 7. I think given he's young and the Marlins are out of it, he probably misses his last start with some of the injuries he's had. So 6 is more likely. So I'm working at around 7 or 8 per start to get there. Look, I mean, when we broke this down about the good, the bad, the ugly a few weeks ago, it's kind of, you can see it both ways with him right now. He could easily have already hit that play. If he doesn't miss those 5 weeks, we're probably already home on the first top up chasing the second. Now it's a different kind of story, and we're going, okay, feel pretty good about 150 at even money. Do we have what it takes to kind of get there and get the 170? We'll wait and see. Tomorrow's a huge part of that, because any chance you get to go against the Pirates with plus strikeout stuff, you're a chance at nudging double digits. And one of those starts, then just all of a sudden means I need 5 and 6s the rest of the way.
Yeah, and look, the Pirates have been scuffling since the break, and I mean, anytime you get a team up against Paul Skeens, the strikeout numbers can pile up in a hurry. So both Skeens and Perez 6 or more at even money, and then a top up at 8 or more apiece at $7. Where are we going for your next?
So I had a fair bit of success today, albeit with the little miss on the third top up in the Brewers and Padres series. And look, it's a huge series for a lot of reasons. The Padres are 1 game behind the D-backs in the wild card race, and that's, must-watch TV right now if you're a fan of either team. The Brewers are also chasing the number 1 seed, and I think I saw the other day, Brewers are $4.50 to be the number 1 seed, which is madness. Like, they're 4 wins in front of the Dodgers right now. I think that's a pretty good bet with 40-odd games or whatever it is to go and the rotation they've got. But the Brewers have everything to play for as well, so there's a lot on the line in this series, and it was a pitching duel today. Tomorrow, I think, is much more one-sided. Kyle Harrison is so good. There's so many of these Brewers pitchers that just don't get talked about enough because of how good Mizorowski is. Kyle Harrison had 10 strikeouts against the Pirates on like 64 pitches last week, and something happened. I think he kind of felt a little bit of cramping when he went back in between innings, and they didn't send him back out again. He's obviously fine. He's starting tomorrow. So he's gotten over whatever that is, and he's expected to make a normal start. Walker Buehler for the Padres is not really where they want to be as far as starting pitching heading down the straight. They went and added 2 starters to their rotation in Casey Myers and Robbie Ray. But this is a rotation that's pretty much just had Michael King and friends all year because of the injuries they've had to so many key guys. Buehler's ERA is over 5. Harrison's been phenomenal. I think this is really one-sided. I love the Brewers at $1.75. I also love Kyle Harrison's strikeout line. So putting them together, Brewers 6 strikeouts, Kyle Harrison to win. Brewers 6 strikeout. Brewers to win, Kyle Harrison, 6 strikeouts, $3. That's going to be the best value. And then I'm going to take a little top up with 8 because if he does anything like he did last week, I think he could be in for a big day. The Padres, weirdly this year, 21st in baseball on strikeout rate. You go back the last few years, they've always been one of baseball's best strikeout prevention teams. It's not happening this year. Guys like Manny, Xander Bogaerts, they're striking out a ton. So if Kyle Harrison can kind of recapture a bit of what he had last week, it's going to be $7.50, I think. Yeah, $7.50 for 8 strikeouts in the win. That's going to be the top up on our best value.
So a few strikeout plays there. Harrison 6 or more, Brewers to win at $3, and then a top up there at $8 as well, paying around $7.50. Come for the best bet, stay for the value. That's what we say here at Baseball Expats. And again, you can follow all of Spoon's picks throughout the week, not just on the podcast at baseballexpats.com. We will be back on Friday with the weekend pickoff. Hopefully, by that point, the Cardinals will have figured out how to win one-run games. I don't think it's going to happen, but we can dream. Until then, enjoy your week. Enjoy your baseball. Bye, everybody.